10 years ago today, this national nightmare began. Trump, a decade ago today, went down the golden escalator, as they always say. And I was 12, okay? And if you think about, we have lots of stories, some crazy statement from Trump on Iran and so many different things, but let's just start with this context. I think it's important. Think about little old me as a 12-year-old. Bright-eyed, bushy-eyed, bright-tailed, however you say it. My whole life was ahead of me. And my biggest concern was, is mommy going to make chocolate chip cookies today? And in came Trump. Who, for all of us, fundamentally changed the course of history for the worse. And obviously, he is not the problem. He is a symptom of the problem, but he definitely worsens the problem. And nothing's ever been the same. I learned that I could both love a family member and think they are utterly insane. Something I didn't know was possible. I could have a deep and profound disrespect for someone while respecting them as a person. I could learn that the sweetest love, life, laugh, God, Jesus, people could also support utter catastrophe. And here we are, 10 years later. Lots of news. Welcome everybody to the morning show. Today, it's not actually live. We're premiering it. It had to be pre-recorded. We're traveling. And so I do appreciate you joining us nevertheless. And that does mean I won't be reading chats or memberships. But if you do want to click the join button below, I will see it still and I'll appreciate it. And maybe I'll be in the chat when this is premiering, interacting with y'all. Thank you all. The Associated Press reports the death toll grew Sunday as Israel and Iran exchanged missile attacks for a third straight day, with Israel warning that worse is to come. We have Trump's most recent statement on this. He's been kind of all over the place, but more context. Israel targeted Iran's defense ministry headquarters in Tehran, and sites it alleged were associated with Iran's nuclear program, while Iranian missiles evaded Israeli air defenses and slammed into buildings deep inside Israel. In Israel, at least 10 people were killed, and that brings the country's total death toll to 14. In Iran, the health ministry reported 224 people have been killed since Israel's attack began Friday. The agency said another 1,277 people were hospitalized and said over 90% of the casualties were civilians. And that brings us to Trump's statement. As always, what does he say? Don't worry, we're going to get peace. Even if he's considering and acknowledging that he's considering actions that would bring us, so very far from peace. The president who promised us no new wars, who said that it was Kamala Harris or crooked Joe Biden who were going to lead us into World War III, that they were warmongers and they wanted to see more war and further escalations in the Middle East. Now he's president. This is what we're seeing. It's not all because of him, obviously. It's mostly not because of him. But using the MAGA logic, everything in the world is the U.S. president's doing. Iran and Israel should make a deal, and will make a deal just like I got India and Pakistan to make in that case by using trade with the United States to bring region, cohesion, and sanity into the talks with two excellent leaders who were able to quickly make a decision and stop. That was all one sentence. Also, during my first term, Serbia and Kosovo were going at it hot and heavy. That is not how I would describe it, but okay. As they have for many decades, and this long-time conflict was ready to break out into war. I stopped it. Biden has hurt the longer-term prospects with some very stupid decisions, but I will fix it again. Another case is Egypt and Ethiopia and their fight over a massive dam that is having an effect on the magnificent Nile River. There is peace, at least for now, because of my intervention, and it will stay that way likewise. We will have peace soon between Israel and Iran. And then, this is the part that just tells you everything about Trump. So there was a lot of his, I am the great peacemaker. One of the examples he cited, we don't have to go very far back in history because it was very recent. India and Pakistan, you might remember Trump said, I resolved it. And then they came out and said, what? You weren't even a part of this, dude. So that's kind of a lot of misnomers. But then it gets to Trump's character here. Right now, things are heating up between Israel and Iran like we haven't seen in a very long time. I don't do the World War III fear-mongering thing because some people, that's their only hammer, and they're constantly hitting every nail, that we're always about to be in World War III. And they just blame it on whoever they don't like. You remember Tulsi Gabbard, we're about to be in nuclear holocaust. But if you were making that argument, this is, in Trump's considerations of the U.S. striking Iran, is World War III variables. So he says, amid all of that, worsening tensions, he starts moaning, and apologies for the term, bitching about not getting enough credit. Many calls and meetings now taking place. I do a lot and never get credit for anything, but that's okay. The people understand. Make the Middle East great again. Absurd. We're talking about the most serious, grave, tragic of circumstances, and he's doing the same. Why does no one give me credit? What are we supposed to give you credit for? Mass death in Gaza still. Now, Israel and Iran are at war. Ukraine, no peace deal like he promised. The things he does take credit for and that are examples of peace, he wasn't a part of. So what is it that foreign policy-wise we're supposed to give him credit for? Now, this is something I've referenced that's really scary. Trump tells ABC News he's mulling an attack on Iran, says we could get involved. Now, I know you don't need me to say this, but this isn't about Iran cheerleading. My goodness, that regime is terrible. This is about not wanting the United States to get into a direct war with Iran. Israel spent the past week launching airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, and then they've been responding. Death has been caused, just going through the context in this article. Trump said, we're not involved in it. Yes, we are. It's possible we could get involved, but we're not at this moment involved. Then he said about the negotiations falling apart. He says, no, there's no deadline, but they're talking. They'd like to make a deal. They continue to talk. Now, I would be hopeful that, maybe we get out of this because we all don't want the Iranian regime to have nuclear weapons. Yes, agreed. But maybe we get out of this through a peace negotiation, a nuclear deal, like the one that Trump ripped up, that Obama had secured. But okay, maybe he rights his wrongs and gets that. So when he says they'd like to make a deal, if that were a normal president, you'd go, oh, good, okay, he must know something. But this is the same guy who repeats over and over that Putin wants to make a peace deal too. And we've seen the legitimacy of that claim. Trump's comments about direct U.S. military strikes in Iran come a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly asked him to consider a strike on Iran's Fordo nuclear facility. Sources cited by the Times of Israel said Saturday that Trump told Netanyahu the option was on the table if he felt circumstances warranted it. And apparently Scotty J is calling for that. So I don't have to use hyperbole or anything to say that what's interesting is you could use the exact sort of adjectives and verbs and nouns that MAGA used wrongly every time Biden did anything, the World War III fear-mongering. This is actually how we get there. And it's scary. And Trump's clashing with Tucker Carlson over this now. You might remember that Tucker Carlson called Trump complicit with warmongering. Again, Tucker Carlson's not someone that I take much value of his word on, but it is interesting to see this infighting. President Donald Trump hit back at MAGA media star Tucker Carlson on the suggestion that Trump is abandoning America First principles by supporting Israel's military strikes on Iran. And Trump's response was, well, he's the one who developed the phrase America First, and therefore he decides what it means. Okay. So we'll see how MAGA responds to that. One other little detail, and then we'll go on to other less intense things. Here's Fox News.
Good afternoon.
Let me quickly refresh this and get this for you.
Good afternoon, Brett. And we can now answer a question that you put to Benjamin Netanyahu that he punted on. A U.S. official is telling us just in the last few minutes since your interview concluded that President Trump did, in fact, in the last couple of days, nix a plan that the Israelis were putting together to assassinate the supreme leader of Iran. So we can put a bow on that as President Trump prepares to come and join us here in Canada. And he is telegraphing the way that he will frame this fight between Israel and Iran once he meets with the other G7 leaders.
So that's where we'll leave the Israel-Iran-Trump conversation. On to something more fun. There was a news helicopter pilot covering the protests in Los Angeles and didn't seem to realize that his mic was still on. And so he's just chit-chatting with someone else talking to him over the comms, and he starts talking about his love life. So you can't hear the question that was asked to him, but it must have been something like, what's going on in your love life? You got a woman, and you get some ass. And And he just starts going on about, oh, well, I'm legally married, but that's not really working out. So I'm maybe looking, but not really. I kind of want to be a lone wolf. Not realizing this is all being taken on the air and being recorded.
The answer is yes. You know what? I don't care. I don't care about my... I am married. I am legally married. I am legally married. That's about the only way you can really say it. I am legally married. But I am not looking at now at all. I just had a bunch of debacles with my personal life. Yes, it's true. I know. It's hard to believe. Somebody that doesn't even know what he's talking about in a relationship.
Next time you're in a helicopter, just know that this could be the pilot's mindset.
And, but, yeah, I got nothing right now. Got nothing, not really looking. Trying to find myself and be happy. I'm being serious about that.
Love it.
I want to be beholden to no one at this moment. Do I get lonely? Of course, but I got cats.
Oh, good. It's just she took everything. Cats don't take your money. Do I get lonely? Sure. Do I miss the touch of somebody else's skin on mine? Yeah, I do. But oh, good. You're sitting in the back of the helicopter. Can we land, please?
Oh. I think all that information's on the internet. Look at all those red cars down there.
So here's what was going into my mind. Well, first of all, the circumstances made sense, okay? But just recently, for I think only the first, maybe one other time in my life, I've been on a helicopter. And recently I was on one. And I was talking through, you have to talk into the little thing to hear each other. So I was talking to the pilot, and he turns around to look at me. As we're flying that way, he's looking at me. And I was so, I kind of was like, oh, no, but we're above there's buildings. I'm not the expert, but I think you're supposed to face that way. That was scary. I cannot imagine sitting in a helicopter and the person starts going on about, I'm lonely. I just don't want to be beholden to anybody. And do I think about my ex-wife sometimes? Yeah, I do. And we're technically still married, so she's technically my wife. So you think that sometimes she would, but yeah, but I'm good. I'm just trying to be happy. Am I? No. But I'm choosing it. I just don't want to be bogged down. Women, they have so many needs. They're so emotionally needy. They're just really emotional. And so they're always asking you, oh, take me to dinner. Take me to a restaurant. And don't play video games throughout the whole night. So I'm good, is the point. I'm happy. It's just what had happened is she has a sister. And they look really alike. They're not twins, but they look really alike. And so I was thinking, it's not wrong if I pursue her sister because they look so similar. So it's not really cheating because it's really me honoring her just twice. But then she didn't see it the way I saw it. And she said that I was cheating. And I said, well, your sister's hotter than you. And that's kind of what had happened. That's what led to her leaving me. But we're technically still together, but we're separated. So, but then her sister doesn't want to see me anymore because that caused a rift between them. And so she got the house and I got the cats. And I don't see that as fair. But I love the cats. But I resent the cats. I see my ex, still legally married wife, in the eyes of the cats. And so, where are we landing? Is this as he's turned around the whole time talking to you? That's what I imagined. Just after that recent experience, I just imagine the helicopter pilot just goes on this long thing and you're just, please don't have a mental breakdown right here. Please. You have my whole life in your hands, sir. No. I like though that he's just trying to be happy. That's what I like. But that was funny. It was caught on a hot mic. Little interesting phenomenon. Gen Z is drinking less, which some say is good. As dry January begins, there's one generation that has already begun cutting back on alcohol. This is a little bit old of an article, but Gen Z. Data from the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism indicates that alcohol consumption in the U.S. has risen overall, but research from the National Institute on Drug Abuse shows that lifetime drinking, past month drinking, and past year drinking among young people began to decline around the year 2000. That means that such declines have especially impacted Gen Z, defined as anyone born from 1997 to 2012. And some millennials born between 1981 and 1996. Is becoming clear that for whatever reasons, today's younger generations are just less interested in alcohol and are more likely than older generations to see it as risky for their health and to participate in periods of abstinence, like dry January. One of the experts said there's no clear one reason for alcohol's decline among Gen Z, but experts point to a variety of factors. So I bring this story to you for a couple of reasons. The first is because I think the younger generation, Gen Z, gets a lot of crap. A lot for good reason. I'm the one levying it, but it's kind of okay. You know how like you can make a race joke if you're in that racial group, and you can make like a gay joke if you're gay. You can like say a slur if you're like the one who the slur applies to, which as a total side note, kind of weird. Okay? I always found that concept weird. This word is bad. It is harmful, and it causes people pain. But if you're one of the people who it causes pain, use it like a maniac. Okay? Because you're taking it back. Really? Even if I'm using it negatively. Okay. But I see that similarly as why I criticize my own generation. I think that our attachment, and it's not even our fault, but like a lot of people, especially the next generation's attachment to social media is going to cause, I don't even know what. I'm scared.
This is TikTok.
Yes, platforms like TikTok. And just this idea we talked about on the bonus show where everything has to be for a TikTok. Everything, your proposal can't just be a proposal. It has to be something for a video. There are proposals on TikTok of like a specific thing to increase view duration where you're doing cards and it's like slowly telling the audience that you're about to propose and you're standing behind your person you're proposing to. That, or constantly random retail workers are being approached and like, oh, can you do this thing with me? And oh, if you do this, I'm gonna, like, they'll prank some hardworking person and then give them a big tip. And it's sort of like, oh, I didn't ask for your consent to put you in this video, but now that I did, I'm tipping you to like compensate for it. And everything's about getting a TikTok. Yes. And that is going to cause all of us to die. Joni Ernst said it. We're going to die. But I think we're not just going to die, like, eventually. I think our brains are going to die. And that's where AI comes in. I think it'll sync up perfectly where our brains will have been TikTokified so badly that we're just zombies. And then AI will just, like, that's when we'll give the power over to AI. Because we will have given up. And there are like these little kids. I sound like a much older person right now. The kids and their phones. Who the phone is like twice the size of their head. And they're scrolling through TikTok already. And it's crazy. So, point is, that can't be good. And everyone being a little influencer in their life, other than me, can't be good. And none of it can be good. But doesn't mean that in every way we are doomed. Have we replaced the addiction of alcohol with the addiction to social media? Maybe. But at least we're not drinking as much alcohol. And I mean, we as a generation, I see. I don't want. See, here's what I think would happen though. If we stop drinking too much, too aggressively, then we'll be resented by the older generation. And we don't want that. They'll see us as, see, you don't know what it was like. You didn't have the stress in your life that necessitated heavy drinking like we did, right? There'll be that sort of generational resentment if we really cut back on drinking. So what I've done, bravely, is as much of my generation, I guess, is consuming alcohol less. I've tried to compensate and balance the scale. So really, I don't even like it. I'm like, fine, I'll have a margarita. Fine. Just to make sure we don't get too wimpy. Last night, for example, we had a little shindig, and I was thinking, no, I don't really drink, that's not my thing. But then I saw this article, and I've always valued I have a good relationship with the older generations. And so to show I'm one of them, I decided to drink. And then another one. For you. For many of you. It was for you. I did that for you. Do you not understand? You don't seem grateful. No one ever gives me credit, as Trump would say. No, obviously this is really good, and hopefully that trend continues. There's, other than like, other than sometimes fun experiences, there's just so many negatives, health-wise, life decision-wise, car wreck-wise, regrets-wise, of alcohol. And the more consumption, the more likely people are to then actually succumb to alcoholism. And so it's good. It's good. There's so many negatives. That's good. It could be, too, because of people, maybe the expansion of legalized weed has an impact on that. I do think they're just being, I guess this doesn't make sense, other outlets of dopamine. But who knows? Apparently Will Smith released a new song. And I have to be honest, I like most music. I like a lot of music. And I like music, And music, other just different genres of music, of all types. I think he could have worked a little harder on this one.
I like pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I love pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I like pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls.
So at this point, you might be thinking, is this the whole song? Stick around to find out.
I love pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. You don't gotta wait in line tonight. You too fine for the line tonight. 5 + 5, you a dime tonight. It's a full house, better play your cards right. I'ma post your pic if you pose. Make one phone call, you in vogue. Head, shoulders, knees, toes. Hold up, wait.
Okay, I don't think I gave it a chance. I actually kind of like this. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I just think the rhyming is a little bit, basic. But,
Pose. I'm about to do some investing. I'll spend it on you and your bestie. You and your twin on a jet ski. I'll change your life if you let me. I like pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I love pretty girls.
Yeah, this just doesn't feel... is this from recently? This doesn't feel like this era at all. This feels like 1990s. Did he say he likes pretty girls? What about like hot girls? Like sexy girls? I like pretty girls. Oh, that's actually kind of catchy though. Moving on from that. There is, I've told you before, I keep up with these right-wing accounts because we got to talk about things they say, but then they post a lot of videos of liberals. And sometimes I think the ones that the right-wingers like to dunk on provide for a good, insightful conversation about how to message on liberal topics. So let's listen to this video that was titled 5 Words You Had No Idea Are Racist. Off to a bad start. If we didn't know they were, they might not be. That's what I'll get to, which is words have the meaning that we societally kind of agree to, which is why certain words have shifted in their meaning and why some have become more inappropriate as more weight is attached to them, which is fine. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, well, like the F slur means a bundle of sticks, so how could it possibly ever be hurtful to say? No, I mean, it is how we use it, and you can make very clear with context clues how you're using a word. So some of these, or let's listen, but then to loop back around to the point, which we will, arguing people shouldn't say some of these words when they've lost the meaning she brings up and they mean something different is a losing battle. As a reminder, click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show. We are not actually live, but this is premiering. It was pre-recorded. That's why I'm not reading your comments. Normally I do. We do a morning broadcast. Didn't want to miss it even when we're traveling. That's why we did this. Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we have lots of fun. It gives us a chance to talk about other things than what fits into our normal show.
Hi, my name is Kylie, and here are 5 words you use every day that have racist origins. Number 1, hip hip hooray. Although it might sound joyful, hip hip was an anti-Semitic chant used by mobs in Europe in the 1900s, especially during the hep hep riots in Germany. It has a much darker past than people realize. Number 2, moron. Moron was a term used to describe people with intellectual disabilities that was often used to justify forced sterilizations. It was very common among eugenicists. Number 3, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I am shocked by how many people do not know that the word tiger was originally this word. It was common in both the US and the UK, and it took decades for people to change it, even in schools. Number 4, powwow. It's not just a meeting, it's a sacred indigenous ceremony where people gather. Using the term to describe a business meeting can come across as disrespectful, even if you don't mean it to be. And number 5, Eskimo. This was a term given by outsiders to label indigenous people, and the term means eater of raw meat. Many indigenous Arctic people find it offensive and outdated. Words matter, and knowing the roots of these words help us to be more respectful and conscientious people. If you use any of these things, I'd encourage you not to, but obviously I'm not the language police, okay?
Oh, well, that was a nice caveat. Because this is the thing. This reminds me of, there was like a Stanford, right wing went crazy about it. Stanford words list, and it felt like every word was on it with an explanation as to why it was offensive. It was like, patriotism. This could be seen as hearkening back to the mass slaughter of, and it's like, whoa, my gosh, wait. That's not how most people use it. And so what's tough is this is a really squishy, flexible concept. So there's two sides of this argument, that any word ever that you find some origin that people use in their regular life, that we should shame people for using. She said she wasn't language police, so I appreciate that, but that we should shame people when the word has completely lost that old meaning and means something different. That's one end of it. That would be like more the left if we're doing a political spectrum. And then the right wingers do the whole words only mean nothing but what they mean to you, so nothing ever means anything. Which is also silly because, exactly, yes, words only mean what we make them mean. That they're just noises out of our flappers, our lips. But they also are everything. Like, they start wars. They end wars. They create relationships. They end relationships. They further human intelligence. They are the way we communicate, induce feelings in one another, express ourselves. So they have a lot of weight to them also. But how much weight they have, that is a very stretchy, arbitrary, in the moment, socially determined idea. And so as libbies, we have to not go overboard with making the list so long of words that really aren't harmful. Like, people don't actually find themselves hurt. If I say, oh, let's just go have a quick powwow. Who's thinking that's to hurt somebody's feeling? Nobody. But when someone says, hey, you liberal F-slur, I'm not like, oh, they mean I'm a liberal bundle of sticks. So you would go, oh, you're allowed to say that, you are, but I'm telling you that my reaction to it is thinking you mean what you definitely mean. So what happens is we lose these arguments and we become the word police when we track down every, like, what was, like, hip hip hooray. Come on. Hip hip hooray. And it sounds like, and I believe, I'm taking her at, face value with any of these citations. I didn't know any of them, except for, I did know the moron one, but
Some people realize.
But it can come from some place, just like how a word can start. I'll just keep using this one, like the bundle of sticks word, harmless, and then for some reason, I don't even know how this happened, but become harmful just based off how people are using it. Again, the context clues. If all of a sudden everyone started using F-slur just in a really, if it's kind of slowly shifted back to only in right reference to a bundle of sticks, then hip hip hooray. That would be good. Then it would no longer mean anything. And so there are battles where words people were genuinely, and large numbers of people, there's not a perfect, this percentage of the population has to say it's not that. It's very organic and natural how we shift the meaning of language. But there are a lot of steps we've taken that have gotten better. There are a lot of words people would casually use to denigrate. A huge thing people do is to make fun of a person over here. They use a descriptor for a group over here. Like the R word for, like, you're dumb, using it as like, you're dumb. So then people over here who that word technically applies to in its original origin, they feel like you're saying, oh, you're worse, someone who's not in that category, because I'm calling you someone else's category group. You could understand how that could kind of eventually wear down. The example that sticks within the same category I've been referencing a lot, the you're gay, that's gay, you're gay, gay. Moody's. They, it's not like, oh no. It's just, it's interesting that you mean lame. And then for people that applies to, it kind of like, oh, don't love that, but it's fine. Don't love it though. And so we've made steps, and people have stopped doing that on a lot of words that were way more common are less common now. And most people agree that was probably for the best. And then there are some that have and that's why this debate is so arbitrary, because you don't know where this line is drawn. But some that you just kind of viscerally say, I've never heard someone say hip hip hooray in this country in modern times, and meaning it as like a dog whistle to whatever it was that she referenced. Now, moron, it's interesting. If you look through let's see what she said, the sinister history of the word moron, and let's listen to this part, because this one I have heard before.
Number 2, moron. Moron was a term used to describe people with intellectual disabilities that was often used to justify forced sterilizations.
Yeah, so that one it's a little bit more, you can understand, but I went through and looked at a lot of the words, moron, idiot, and a lot of those, and a lot of them come from the same list of words that described like intellectual disabilities, folks. And so where do you draw that line? I don't know, but I would just say on some of these, don't fight that fight, because you come off a little bit silly, a little bit loco. And people see it as sort of, that's what you're fighting for? Is this liberalism? Is this the battle that you're waging? And that's not the battle that we're waging. Honestly, in a general sense, I just think we as a movement need to get less focused on that type of stuff and more focused on the stuff that impacts very consequentially the most amount of people. Because on those issues, like the economic policy, it doesn't mean the cultural stuff and the more intellectual, cerebral, theoretical stuff doesn't matter. But just in this moment, there's such an urge for a movement that speaks to the collective economic resentment that people have, the collective acknowledgement that we live in a broken economic system that serves the top way too much and doesn't provide for the proper services to everyone else. And so many people, right, left, and center, agree on some of the basic tenets like healthcare reform that Democrats would be the ones to lay out. So when you have such popular things, and you're gonna be the far more decent movement, when groups that are, whenever groups are being targeted based on their identity, you're gonna stand up for them. But instead of leading with much more pie in the sky, out of touch feeling issues, let's just all unite, regardless of if we say moron or not, around the 10 issues, 20 issues that really the pulse of the country is aligned on. The idea of more properly taxing the oligarchy, reining in their power to more fully fund and allow to flourish our education, our infrastructure, making sure everyone has some level of health coverage, giving people stronger workplace bargaining ability, better workplace conditions, higher wages. Some of these items, they're so abundantly popular, and they don't rely on at all the stuff the right wing loves arguing about. They love when our argument is about is she sure? Like, are they, well, how many pronouns are there? How many genders are, like, oh, yay, let's have this debate again. Which that debate, let's have it. Out and about. Have fun. But at the center of our political debate, you have a right-wing movement that's just utterly collapsing. I don't even know what it stands for right now. Trump was supposed to be the president of peace. We talked about that not going so well. His economic policy, we looked at the specific numbers on it, just funnels resources from the bottom 90% to the top 10%. The opposite of what should be happening. He's failing even on his agenda that is terrible to legislate. And if he does succeed, it's going to be ripping away healthcare for millions of people. I think in a moment like that, how about we go, hey, regardless of where you stand on the pronouns debate, let's just all link arms and say we want everyone, the 99%, the 90%, we want everyone to be served better by this government. And it's not by ripping away healthcare, it's by giving people more healthcare. It's not by funneling resources from the bottom up, it's by investing the vast resources of the top better in the 90%. And that I think it's pretty easy to get people on board with that. But they get distracted when we scream more. And it's not really necessarily always our fault, but when the debate becomes about these, honestly, as important as they are in people's lives, some of them, like to the collective American public, are not super relevant to most people. Doesn't mean they don't matter, but they're not as consequential. And so let's put a pin in some of the debates, get everyone healthcare, and then let's do it. How naked can drag queens get? I'm ready for that. I want it. I want that debate. But let's make sure everyone has living wages first. Eh? Deal. That's where I'll leave it. A little short for today. But like I said, exciting things going on. Traveling. I can't tell you why, but something very exciting you'll know about eventually. I appreciate you. Talk to you next time.